Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second lecture in our Marvelous Medicine series. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Geetanjali, my senior from MBBS days. Currently, the director of AIIMS Bhubaneswar and also the mentor director of AIIMS Guwahati. Dr. Geetanjali did her MBBS and MD from JIPMA Pondicherry and her PhD from Puducherry University. Before becoming the director of AIIMS Bhubaneswar, she was the professor and head of the Department of Pharmacology, as well as, and she has also been the head of medical education at JIPMA. Dr. Geetanjali is a member of the WHO Expert Advisory Panel on Drug Evaluation. She has several national and international publications. She is a trained dancer and a great orator. I'm sure we'll all really enjoy listening to her this evening. Welcome and thank you once again, Geetanjali, for accepting my invitation instantly. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vidya. Thank you very much.
And today's moderator is Professor Rakesh Agarwal, who is the director of JIPMA Pondicherry at present. Sir did his MBBS and MD from AIIMS Delhi and his DM Gastro from PGI Chandigarh. Sir also has a master's degree in epidemiology from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Before he joined JIPMER as director, Dr. Agarwal has spent a long time at the Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences in various capacities and finally as the professor of gastroenterology. Dr. Agarwal is the editor of the Journal of Gastroenterology and Hepatology and has been awarded the National Bioscience Award for Career Development. Despite being the director of an institute, he still continues his interest in research and even now he is part of trials and publications. Despite your busy schedule, you all readily agreed to join us today, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Rakesh Agarwal.
Thank you. My pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, sir. Whenever you are ready, Dr. Geetanjali, we'd like to hear from you. And then if you don't mind, our viewers will ask you questions.
Sure, that's fine. Okay. So first of all, I thank Vidya for inviting me here to talk to all of you and Professor Rakesh Agarwal for agreeing to be the moderator for this session. Thank you very much, Rakesh. It's indeed a privilege to be have this session moderated by an academician like him. We have both done this, transitioning from academics to administration. So I will be sharing my own experiences for the next, let's say, around 40 minutes. Rakesh, can I begin?
Sure, Geetanjali. I'm looking forward to your talk. Great. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So this talk is about me, and this is me sitting here in this circle where it was my comfort zone. And it's not that do not enter, students entered, they fed me. And I was this happy person who was sitting here. So the question was, why? Why did I transition from something which I was enjoying? I may not have been a fantastic academician in that sense or a researcher, but I was thoroughly enjoying myself. So why did I do this? And for this, you have to understand that I was this frog in the well, a very happy frog looking out, going about my own things. But this was, this entire well was my whole universe, okay? And that was in JIPMA. So my experience, JIPMA experience, gave much to what I am today. And I want to tell you, the first thing is the training. Yes, we had a fantastic undergraduate training, which was unmatched. I can say unmatched undergraduate training. And the postgraduate training, especially in the Department of Pharmacology, really was one which had to be admired because we had people who actually led you to the threshold of your own mind. It is exactly as Khalil Gibran said. Rather than trying to push their ideas, they wanted you to pursue what you felt comfortable and what you wanted to do. There was great teamwork. We had a great team in JIPMER, and in pharmacology, there were 3 people at one time who were equally well known. Dr. Adityan, Ravindran, and myself, we all 3, I don't think there was any other department which had 3 biggies, all with well respected in the, amongst the peers. And the other thing was that we could work with other departments. We didn't feel that, we were pharmacologists or something. There was Dr. Sethuraman, there was Can, there was Dr. B.K. Srinivas, Dr. Asha, Dr. Ananthakrishnan. There was a great deal of teamwork which went on. Many, or I would say all the senior people extremely humble. And from them we had to learn, what it is, that it is so important to be a good human being. They were always encouraging young people. And my experience, see, when I was a senior resident, the director at that time was Dr. Professor Chandrasekhar, who was chief of medicine also. He was to give a talk in CMC Vellore at an international conference on antimicrobials. I prepared his slides and I had, written it out. He was going to talk on antimicrobial use in pyrexia of unknown origin. I still remember that. He couldn't come. We had to go. Naturally, those days we used to go by bus. He couldn't come to CMC Vellore. When he didn't come to CMC Vellore, actually Dr. Sashindran asked me to give the speech on his behalf. I mean, I can never imagine a senior resident giving the talk instead of the director of the institution. And from there, I did many workshops with Dr. Asha Umachiki, with Dr. Sethuraman, with Ananthakrishnan, with Dr. Sashindran. I was a resident. They were all senior people, and we did these wonderful workshops in Kerala, which the later on Professor Iqbal, who was the Vice Chancellor of Kerala University, organized. So they encouraged a lot of young people. I also was taught to prepare. The amount of work people like Dr. Sashindran would put in for a single class, for a single workshop, was really something to admire. And so that, you feel that you will never do anything which you are unprepared. The other experience was the JIPMER pharmacy experience. And in 2005, when I took over pharmacy, I remember telling Professor, that time, I think it was Professor Subbarao, I'm not very sure. I remember telling him, sir, give me 6 months. If at the end of 6 months I can't do it, I'm going to change. You have to find somebody else. So these were some of the things which slowly, laid in me the foundations of becoming a good administrator later on. But I also didn't want to move out. See, generally we say, this is where the magic happens. So move out of your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is here. The magic is happening there. But for me, the magic was happening within my comfort zone. So why would I want to move out of the comfort zone? So after some time, this boiled frog syndrome set in. I was sitting there and this, the story is that if you put a frog into a pot of hot water, it will immediately jump. It will jump out because it will want to escape. Whereas if you put a frog in a cold, in a pot full of cold water and slowly start heating it up, even if the water is boiling, the frog will be sitting there. And this is what I became. So the WHO experience changed all that. In 2010, I went to Delhi. I was working at the Southeast Asia Regional Office of the World Health Organization for 2 years. And it was difficult at the beginning because I was, out of my home for the first time, leaving home in a city where I didn't know Hindi, but I can tell you my batchmate, Dr. Rekha Garg, she was with me all the way and I never felt anything because all the time we were together. It was like having MBBS all over again. And so the WHO experience taught me there was lots of travel, lots of international travel, but it also taught me how to work within a system. The red tape in WHO is mind-boggling. I mean, nobody will imagine there can be so much red tape. But you learn how to work within a system and get things done. And, and that was probably the first time I started working in Orissa. So I got to know some of the people here who were there. I got to know the health secretary is still in Orissa as a secretary of another department. It also taught me how to plan. There was a steep learning curve and I learned so much from others because you have these very passionate people who are in WHO who have given their life to that. And I was probably the only person, this Professor Krisanta Veerasurya, who is a clinical pharmacologist, he was the person who was responsible for making me join this Better Medicines for Children program in Delhi, because he was keeping on at it. And finally, he got sick when I kept on refusing, and he told me he'll give me 48 hours to decide. So he's the person whom but unfortunately, when I joined, my boss was Dr. Kathleen Holloway. She's wearing this blue sari. Wonderful lady. She's a Britisher. Very, very, very good at what she does. So it was a good experience and I learned a lot. But if there is one person who was responsible for me to ultimately make the change, it is Professor Ravi Kumar, the former director of JIPMER. And he is the one who said I would consider him a mentor when it came to my administrative, aspect, what I took, because I learned so much from him. From 2012, I came back from WHO and he told me come back. Because at that point of time, I was even thinking of staying back. So he said, no, come back. And he's the one who gave me the, what shall I say, the thought that I could move to administration. So the post-WHO experience from 2012 was I was taking up increasing administrative responsibilities. When I came back, Dr. Ravindran took me to Dr. Ravi Kumar's room and he said, sir, she has come back. Please, she should take over pharmacy. Give it to her. So he just smiled and he said, welcome, and let her take her time and all. So he said, no, sir, she has been here. Today itself, you give the order. He didn't. He just kept quiet and then he made me purchase officer. After that, after some time, I took over finance, then medical education. After he left, I took over faculty admin. He did a lot of recruitment for LDC, all different posts. So I learned how to go through the whole recruitment process. So the thing is, it was not a sudden jump from academics to administration. It was not as though one day I made up my mind that I'm going to come and join it. So I had a lot of experience in JIPMER doing various aspects of administration. So these were some of the things which I did. As you can see, the administrative responsibilities kept adding. So you might ask, why did I leave? And what made me leave? Because I never had it. I wanted to take up an administrative position within JIPMER. I never wanted to leave the institution. But two things happened simultaneously. One was I realized I had a flair for administration. I enjoyed it. And as I said, I was faculty admin and finance at the same time, both very, what shall I say, difficult departments to manage. And even though we were doing all this, we were successful. We were called to do the nurses recruitment in Andaman's Nicobar Islands by the officer on special duty, because their recruitment had gone in, they hadn't been able to recruit for 4 years. The CBI was investigating this thing. So they wanted a team, and our team had got some good, what people said, that we were, honest, and our integrity was, something to reckon with and all that. So we were called. Then I realized that I was, still not very happy. There were ways in which I was made to realize that I was not wanted. So at that point of time, I applied for 2 positions, but I still wanted to stay on. I thought, okay, let me see. If I get selected, then we will take a decision. But then a tipping point came, and the tipping point was I was not invited. The dean's position became vacant in JIPMER, and I was not invited to put in an application. So then I thought, now it's time to leave, because rather than staying and becoming very unhappy, I thought the time had come when I should, gracefully go. So this was what made me leave. And therefore, if you ask me, would I encourage people to take up medical leadership of an academic institution? My answer is yes. Those of you who want to take up leadership positions should take up. Why? Because a good administrator can make a big difference. And there is a huge lacunae for medical leadership There are so many new institutions, government institutions, which are coming up. And those of you who can lead, who want to do it, should take it up. It makes a huge difference for the people of that region. So I'll just quickly go through the main divisions in a medical institution. Most of you will be knowing are these, right? There may be some more or less, but everything comes under these 5 divisions. And in the AIIMS, the new AIIMS or even the old AIIMS, it is a ministry which appoints the director. The ministry also appoints the deputy director of administration. Okay, but the director appoints all these people. You know, the deans from within the faculty, the superintending engineer is selected, financial advisor, medical superintendent, all selected by the director. So there are a huge number of people who are working. I have just listed a few things which come under the different sections, but it's a huge, what shall I say, establishment which we run. Okay? And so when I took over, even though some of the buildings had been completed, like the medical school building, medical college building had been completed, the nursing college, a few floors had been completed, but a large number of things were not there. You know, there was no CSSD, pharmacy, gas manifold. Gas manifold was there, but we didn't have liquid medical oxygen. You know, the laboratories, we had outsourced laboratories and so on. So there was a huge need for somebody to quickly scale up. And I'm just showing you just a overview of our statistics, some of the statistics. So when I came, we were having about 3.7 lakhs OPD patients a year. And then last year we had 9 lakhs. So you can see how it has increased. Similarly, the IPD beds, naturally the number of beds we could keep on increasing. So we had about 25,000 patients last year. I'm not counting this year because from March our statistics have gone. So similarly, surgeries. When I came, we had just 3 OTs. Now we have 25 modular OTs. That is, into 2020 we have 25. Last year we had 15. So if you can see, all the statistics shows how we have grown. Similarly, if I look at the equipment which was procured for departments, there was a problem with using the money which was given to us. So things were put in place, and you can see that last year we spent around 32 crores worth of equipment for departments. Even this year we've already spent about 23 crores. So we became more efficient in spending the money that was given to us in the correct manner. Similarly, the courses. When I joined, there was only MBBS, only 8 MS, MD departments, and we had BSc nursing and paramedical. But now we have so many departments, so many courses have started. So if you look at the postgraduate courses, right now we have 25 MD, MS courses and 13 DMMCH courses at the moment. From the time when I started, we had only 8. Similarly, the number of PG medical students admitted, from 9 when I joined, it has now come up to 123. So I'm showing this because if we hadn't done things and put in place the fundamental logistics required, look at the publications of the faculty. In 2017, this was the number of publications, and last year, 2019, these are the number of publications. Of course, I'm trying my best to bring this publications in non-index journals down. It will take some more time. Similarly, if you look at research, from 2017, where extramural grants, we had about 1.5 crores. This year, we have got 20 crores worth of extramural projects. So this didn't happen overnight. It happened because we did enough faculty development programs, training, research methodology, biostatistics, how to write papers, how to write grant applications, and so on. We also encouraged intramural grants so that faculty could have some seed money, produce some data, publish, and then use that data to get some better grants. So to make this happen, I feel one should give yourself completely to the task. Full time, you have to devote. You cannot do things, do two things at the same time. So that is very important. And many people, what they do is they get a position and they use that position to leverage another position. So if you are a director, you're all the time thinking, when can I go somewhere else as a vice chancellor or go to some other place as a director? So when this happens, what happens is this institution doesn't grow. And so that is something which I am seeing many people who are trying to do that. Then we need to have some politricks. This word politricks was told to me by my husband 3 days back, and he said that these are tricks we need to learn to manage politicians. So I thought this was a very well coined term. I'm using it. Politicians are there. They will be there in your governing body, in your institute bodies, in all the standing academic committee, in every committee. But we need to learn to manage them. Some of them are really very good, and most of the time they want things for their own constituencies. So we need to learn the tricks how to manage politicians. We also need to read up on administration. Once I took on this position, even before I joined, I started reading up anything and everything which was available on administration, whether it is Marcus Aurelius, whether it is Chanakya or Simon Sinek, I read up. And then we need to get ourselves a good team. I have been very lucky that I have a great administration team, a great finance team. And when you have these two things taken care of, the other things, we have a very good team which is managing my hospital medical superintendent with all his deputies and all of them. So we need to get ourselves a good team. But sometimes we can't handpick everybody because obviously they are selected for us, and we need to learn to manage with the team. So it is not all exciting work. There's a lot of mundane work which goes on: paperwork, files, leave approvals, travels, meetings, conferences. All these things happen and they are very boring most of the time. There is also a lot of conflict resolution which you will have to do. This I have given a very, what shall I say, a posh word. I would mostly say that it is katta panchayat. Mostly we'll be getting people who come and want to, fight with each other. We also need to meet with important people and then sometimes attend functions. So it's not all, very exciting work or we are doing things all the time. So how to inculcate a good work culture? And this is very important, especially in a new institution. One of the good things we have here is we have faculty from various who have been trained in various institutions. Some have been trained abroad, Australia, Canada, US, UK. And these people act as role models. And they're coming from a lot of INIs, from CMC Vellore, from NIMHANS, from SGPGI, from, PGI, AIMS, all these places. Most of them are from Orissa, naturally, because they want to come. But because their training is from the other institutions, they are fantastic role models. The other thing I believe is I set an example, because basically I am my mother will say, or well illata case, no, because I really don't have any work in the house. So I tend to come early, I tend to go late, and I set an example by being here all the time. I meet with people all the time so that they can come and get their things, if they have a problem, they can get it sorted out. I also have this tendency to check. I am there sometimes at 8 o'clock in the morning to see whether classes are starting on time. Sometimes I sit in on the undergraduate classes. So if the classes are not taken or something like that, I get to know. So that's a good thing, because if it happens, I immediately, send an email or call up and ask why wasn't this class taken. So it sort of sets in motion a good culture of starting classes on time. The other thing is to appreciate. There are people who are doing good work. Some people are doing exemplary work. And so they need to be appreciated, because after all, everyone needs, to be said that, good, you are doing good, keep it up. And it it makes people feel so good. It makes me also feel good when I can appreciate someone. But I also never hesitate to call a spade, because that puts people, tells people where they stand. Because sometimes you'll have these people who come and try to, show off, and then you need to tell them that, that's not okay. I also give a lot of incentives, especially to the, security people, to the housekeeping staff. There are incentives in the form of appreciation. We give best worker award for that month sometimes, and we give cash incentives. We appreciate them during some special days and so on. It works, and that is a good thing which we also do. But there are certain non-negotiable acts on which immediate action will be taken. For example, like especially harassment of a lady employee or their lady colleague, or if they are being verbally abusive or physically abusive, then immediately I tell them that I not only take action, but I believe that action should be seen to be taken. That's when you put a stop to those things. As our former president Abdul Kalam said, this brand of integrity, once you build a brand of integrity, it's really that you don't get to know sometimes what things are happening around you. So I don't think that there are no things which should not be happening. Even today, there were I got a mail that some student had been given admission in AIIMS Bhubaneswar, and it was a fraud. Somebody is given a fraudulent letter. So things happen. But when you build a brand of integrity, people get to know of this, and then they learn to trust you, especially people who want to, let's say, give money. For example, under corporate social responsibility, in the last 4 years, I have got 50 crores. Because people believe that if they give money, it will be used for the purpose for which they are giving. So this leadership integrity for me is very important. We have to do what we say we will do. And once you do that, then people learn to trust you. And that's very, very important. I'll give you a small story how it was handled. We did a selection for a group, and I won't tell what group it was. And what happened was we did this selection. We had experts coming in from Delhi and all that. And it was a large selection process. It went on for 3 days. Then when we finished it, we made the list and all that. And we, checked, double checked, everyone tried to check and all that stuff. And just before, and we put it up in the our notice board. Just before issuing the order, the offer of appointment, I told our DDA, just check again, no? So he checked and he found that some of the calculations were wrong. And did it make a difference? Yes. One person who was selected was going into the wait list. One person was coming in the wait list was being selected. I still remember when he told me that, first thing I did was I sat down. So this is a huge thing. Just imagine that person's mental frame of mind. One day you think you're getting a government job, next day you are told that you are not getting. But I said we are going to tell the truth. So we called up the selection committee. We told them we made a mistake. So you are going to come again. We are going to recalculate, and then we are going to write it down. So the thing is, we said we have made a mistake. We are sorry, but we have rectified that mistake. So I believe this is important. This kind of integrity we need to keep in mind. Now there is this threat of this entitled class, and you see this more and more. The moment a student gets into AIIMS, they think, oh, I am AIIMS. I can, do anything. I don't have to come for class. I should be passed. I don't have to pass the practicals. You'll have mothers ringing up and saying, doctor, I am also a doctor. I don't think any child was failed in practicals. How can you fail my son? And that kind of a thing. So they think that then I will do only if he or she does it. This is not my job. Residents, the interns don't want to collect go and collect blood from the blood bank. Then this regular employee business kind of a thing. Also, then this is my right. It is my right to go for conferences abroad. Even if it is a predatory conference, I must go. I don't know about predatory conferences. So this thing is something which we need to think about, because after all, they're all dealing with government money. And we need to be careful where we spend it, how we spend it. So you might ask me, is this change happening? Do you think you have brought in a culture of change? And I'll tell you a few stories and you can make your own decision. This is one Mr. Anil Das Chowdhury. He's a class 1 officer. He's the stores and purchase officer. And he's unloading this truck because there was nobody to unload during this COVID crisis. This is Sanjay Dehuri. He's a housekeeping person who works for the housekeeping. The second day after we had the first COVID case on March 19th, there were only 12 people who turned up for hospital. For the entire hospital, we had only 12 housekeeping people. And he said, don't worry, I will do it. This is a security person who is cleaning the floor. He couldn't find any housekeeping staff. He said a patient had vomited. If I don't clean it, somebody might slip and fall. Usually this is the group which says, this is not my job. Why should I do it? This is an outsourced employee who works with our civil maintenance. This is a person who works with the civil maintenance. What does he do? In the middle of the night, one of the pediatric surgeons said, a spear has gone through a small boy. If you come and cut it with the steel cutting thing, I will be able to remove it. He came at 2 a.m. in the morning. He called up at 1 a.m. By 2 a.m., he had come with his tools. He removed it. These are people who didn't have to do it, but they did. These are pharmacists who are unloading the thing. He is an additional professor who went 2 times, 3 times just to get what is that? One of these drugs during this COVID crisis, because we were running short. So I believe these are agents of change. It is happening. And really, I didn't think it would happen. So I'll just quickly go through what I feel are my strengths. One is I am admin savvy. I have gone through so much of administration that I know how to get things done. And I know when somebody is, some things can be done in another way. I also tend to listen to people, and I listen to things which are not said. I also tend to listen to people who are saying things which I don't want to hear, So the voices of dissent, I listen to them too. I have the time and I can give time, and I give time for my work, and I bring attention to detail that research teaches. So, when I go through letters or anything like that, I'm always crossing the T's and dotting the I's and things like that. By nature, I'm a confident person. Yes, my dancing and, my stage, this thing gave it to me. So even if I'm not feeling that confident, I look and speak confidently. So what are my weaknesses? One is my temper. I can lose my temper, and sometimes we do it to, it is important we lose our temper also. But yes, I have put a curb on this a lot. I don't like publicity very much. And this is not good, because let me tell you what happens is, if you are not going out and telling the press what you are doing, the only thing they keep highlighting is what's wrong. So there will be something which happened that will come as a big thing. There will be some light which is not working, it will come in the newspaper and things like that. That's not a good thing. I also have this tendency to micromanage all the time. And I think everyone is like me, because I look at them through my lens. And I'll tell you what happened. When I came initially, there was this big tender for tables for the departments and the heads of the departments. And we were getting these good quality tables at a low price, some 25,000 or something like that. I forget the amount. And people were very angry that they didn't get tables for 1 lakh. And I didn't understand it, because all my life in JIPMER, I've been sitting with an examination table with one dirty, actually a curtain I used to use, and I was happy with that. So I never understood why people want this fancy table, because I look at people through my lens. I had no hospital experience, and I was actually very worried about that. And there was a whole lot of construction which had to go on. And I didn't know anything about construction. So what were the opportunities? The opportunities were I was an outsider. So when I came into this institution, I didn't know people. I didn't come in with any preformed ideas, or, I didn't know people. So I could make my own judgment. I have a full 5-year term, and that's a good amount of time where you can do things. And one of the greatest opportunities are the people of Odisha are extremely loyal to their state. They know that the statistics are not good, and especially the doctors are willing to do their best to improve the kind of healthcare facilities in, and that's a wonderful opportunity. They are also very much appreciated by the public. They really feel that having AIIMS is a big boon to their thing. And the other thing is, of course, it's a new institution. So if you can set up a good culture, why not? And what are the threats? Actually, this is, my gender is not so much as a threat, but people see my gender as a threat. People feel uncomfortable with this. There is a lot of groupism going on. Of course, groupism will be there anywhere, but you will find people from Kerala, from Rajasthan, from North Orissa, South Orissa. Too much of this groupism, and we need to put a curb on that. There is also this tendency to do things too fast, because all the time we are being compared with AIIMS New Delhi. That is an organization which has been there for more than 60 years. You cannot compare something which is there for 6 years. Natural disasters, we had very bad experiences with natural disasters, because this is a cyclone prone area. And plenty of these, RTI, right to information, public interest litigation, human rights, court cases. Somebody took a stone and threw at a dog, one of the security people, and these PETA people were after him. So this is what I really consider some of my threats. If you look at the major challenges which I faced, one was Cyclone Fani. It was terrible. There were winds of about 200 kilometers, and everything which could fall fell, kind of a thing. So it was horrible. Just keeping the the ventilators and the OTs which needed for trauma care and things like that, that was really some experience. But also these things, starting satellite centers 300 kilometers away, mentoring a center 700 kilometers from AIIMS in Rourkela and all that. Plus these things, like when you are asked to mentor more institutions. Our DDA at one time was DDA for 5 of the institutions. So these are, there is only so much a person can do. So if you ask me, was it a good decision? I would say yes. If you ask me, did the academic background help? I would say definitely yes. How did it do? When I joined, the first thing was I realized that I needed to improve the teaching. So we revised the curricula. We did it in a phased manner, and we revised the curricula for MBBS, for all the MSMD courses, and all the DMMCH courses. So that there was a very clear structure. I wanted to introduce research methodology, and now there is a paper in research methodology, both for MDMS as well as DMMCH courses, where students have to pass the paper if they are going to sit for the final year. Okay. I did lots of faculty development programs. As I told you, that has resulted in a good increase in publications as well as people getting extramural grants. I have personally conducted micro teaching sessions for all faculty, almost 180 plus faculty, plus 12 nursing college faculty. I have conducted micro teaching sessions. I have sat through journal clubs of 28 departments. After the journal club, I come back and give them a feedback about the quality of the journal club. So these are small things which I did because of my academic background, which I felt made some kind of a change, revamped the medical education unit and, hospital services with maximum impact to the people of the region. So many of you might have read this, this David Foster Wallace's This was a talk which he gave. This is water. It starts with a story. An old fish is swimming in the sea, and when that old fish is swimming, she sees two smaller fish. So she says, "Morning, kids. How's the water?" The fish swim by, and after some time, one of the fish says, "What the hell is water?" And this is how this whole book starts. And the idea is that most of us, we focus on what is not that important, but which we give so much of importance, and the entire thing, where we are surrounded by it, which is most obvious realities, we don't actually look at. And this is what I believe. As an academician, we have the chance to do that when we take up administration, where we can focus on those realities which are the hardest to see and talk about. We can focus on that. And as an academician, we are completely, at ease to encourage our students. And this is what leaders do. Leaders create leaders. And as academicians, we love to see our students prosper. So we don't have a problem about creating leaders. And I think this is another thing. I can see in these 4 years, I can see people who have those leadership tendencies, even in AIIMS Bhubaneswar. So I'm going to conclude by saying that transitioning from academics to administration will not be difficult. If you have some prior experience, you need to have a little bit prior experience to know what it is. But most importantly, you must want to do it. You must want to be an administrator. You must feel that vision that you want to do this. And then if you have a team, make the best use of the team you have. You may have to train them, but you will need to go with them. And that's the only way you can win. You can't keep cribbing about the team you have. I am blessed to have a really great team. And I can tell you at the end of this that it has been a rewarding journey so far. So thank you very much for listening to me. And I will be happy for Rakesh to take over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anjali. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Gitanjali. I have known you, I think, since 1993, and your talks are always great. Most of the times I have heard talks on research methodology, paper writing, because that's the workshops that we both used to teach at. And I always loved listening to your talks, and the same was true today. So I know you need maybe a minute to catch up your breath. In the meanwhile, maybe so I'll start off with some very easy questions, and these come from people on the audience.
Okay.
So did you learn any Odia language?
No, I don't know Odia. I am very bad with languages, so I don't know Odia. Neither do I know Hindi. Actually, that's very good, because that's why I don't talk to politicians, because they'll come and start talking in Hindi, and I'll say, "Excuse me, sir, I don't understand Hindi. Could you please say in English?" And then the whole thing stops. After that, it's just, do you want tea? Do you want coffee? Kind of a thing.
So I can tell you, I have learned 3 words in Tamil.
Okay.
Vanakkam, Nandri, and Inge.
Okay.
Okay. So fine. Other thing that somebody has asked, I think it's a very relevant question. How do you deal with senior faculty, people who are, as old as you, senior to you, and also some PhD students who are very elderly?
No, see, the thing is, we are a young institution, but yes, there were people who were senior to me, and I generally tend to ignore. I make one thing very clear. I am very courteous. I'm very polite, but I don't give them a lot of responsibilities. So it is a kind of a subtle neglect.
Is it, so now this is for me to learn from you. Is it that after you have tried first, working with them, and then if it doesn't work out, then you do that neglect, or do you start off like that from the beginning with elderly people?
No, I always try to work with them, because I believe that we need to engage with people. So I always try to work with them, trying to get them aboard, can you do this for us, and can you do this? And Then when they don't come back, then is the time when I think, okay, there's no point in wasting more energy on this. So sometimes they're also very happy because that's what they want to have a good time, just come and go kind of a thing. So you can't keep fighting with everyone, and you need to win certain uh, wars. You might not win all the battles, but at least some wars you need to win.
Okay, so let us say this. Do you think one needs to, it would help to do a course in hospital administration if you were to do administration of an institution such as AIIMS?
No, absolutely not. See, because we have hospital administrators for that. You have the medical superintendent, you have a department of hospital administration with the faculty to do that. So, I mean, that's what they do, and we should allow them to do their job. You don't
Okay,
need
so
that.
here is one from me. Do you think administration is equal to treating everybody equally? And if you just do that, things would work out?
No. Hey, ask me some easy question. No, I don't believe we can treat people, everyone equally. See, there will be people who, if you give them a job, they will do it so perfectly that even if you were to do the job, you will not be able to do it like that. And so those people, obviously, sometimes what happens is we keep giving them more and more jobs. And if those people come with some problem, we'll want to sort it out. Whereas there will be these people who don't do anything. And, if they come and ask for something like, huge equipment or something, which which will stay in their, in their department and not be used. Why would you want to, give it to them? That kind of a thing.
What do you do when people don't seem to share your vision for the institution?
Actually, I haven't had that problem. And I don't think, see, the vision is very clear because it is well written in our act, the AIIMS Act, that we need to do this different experiments with teaching, we need to provide the healthcare, and we need to address the inequalities in healthcare. So the broad vision cannot be very different. People might have their own agenda, but I wouldn't call it a vision.
Okay. So what do you think about the rush for publications for promotion? Firstly, do you think we should really be required to have publications for promotion? And if yes, how do you, look at number versus the whatever impact or quality game?
See, I can only talk about, of course, I have a lot of experience in JIPMER too. But if you look at the AIIMS experience, we are a new institution. Mm-hmm. So when people come and set up, the first objective should be to start the teaching courses. Whether it is undergraduate or postgraduate, you need to start the courses. And after teaching, then we have to focus on the hospital services. Research will come with, getting some equipment, collecting some information and so on. So if you look at the early 3 to 5 years, you may not be able to see people writing, even 3 papers a year. It is too much to expect them to write. Because where are the patients? If you see how we have come, it's only now we are having, about 9 lakhs patients in a year. So we need to, I would personally go for quality and not quantity. Definitely quality. Maybe even if they have one paper in a good impact journal, which addresses some regional problem, I would certainly be very, very happy rather than have, people writing 2-3 books and chapters and things like that. So I personally feel it is a tricky situation, which probably the standing academic committee can sit and take a call, depending on the kind of, state in which your institute is.
Okay, so You thought we are asking you simple questions, so let me bring a
No, that's
bouncer.
very, very tough. So,
No, I'll bring a bouncer now. Okay.
Yeah.
And another bouncer for you, I'll request Vaishnavi to butt in sometime and ask you one. I'm sure.
Oh, she's there. Okay.
Yeah,
Hi.
okay. That's okay. So what I want to ask you is, so what do you do when faculty is not performing and they come up for promotion? Do you think everybody must be promoted? How do you deal with this?
See,
That's a difficult
during
one, right?
this is a very difficult question, but I can answer it because we've been there. See, in our for our APS, there will be 2 experts from other INIs. Generally, our experts are from some INIs, and these people are the ones who tell whether they are fit to be promoted or not. And we have had many people who have not been fit to be promoted to the next thing, and based on a lot of things. Sometimes it is not just, some people come and say we don't have a publication at all. So if you've been there for 4 years and you've not had even a single publication or a single case report, or sometimes they ask very simple questions, and if they are not able to answer, then they tell, the experts are very clear. They make it to me very clear. They say that if we had a postgraduate student who didn't know this question, we will not be passing them. So we don't. We've had quite a few people who have not been promoted. Yes, there have been a lot of angry, outbursts, but I try to tell them that, use this failure as a stepping stone. Next time you come, you make sure that, we don't have an excuse to do the same thing. So there have been people who have not been promoted even twice.
So what are the differences you find between the JIPMER culture and the culture that you have at your current workplace? I know I'm putting you into a difficult situation of comparing the 2 institutions. I know it's very difficult. I've somehow been at 4, so I get asked that very often. So what do you think?
See, I like it here.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I miss my home very much.
Yeah, because you are the director.
Yes, that's true. But I also miss, having a circle of friends, because in JIPMER I had, Ravindra.
Your co-frogs in the well, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, I had my friends, and I was very fond of my home and things like that. So that way, yes, I feel a bit lonely. But otherwise, it's the thing is that I personally feel that people want to prove themselves, because that feeling that because we are a young institution, people want to operate, they want to do difficult cases, they want equipment, they want publications. So that was not there in JIPMER. JIPMER is definitely much more laid back. I don't know whether it has changed in these last 4 years, but that would be the major difference I see between JIPMER and here. Here people are always wanting to perform, and that's, I feel, a really good thing.
So Vaishnavi, do you want to tell us some story about how you see the change from being in JIPMER as a teacher to her becoming an administrator in Bhubaneswar? I know, but I'm sure you have something to tell us. Go ahead, please. Unmute yourself, please.
Thank you, Dr. Agarwal. I don't know whether I am the right person to answer this, but
so then tell me who's the right person to answer.
Maybe my dad, who's also on the call. I can see him.
Yeah.
See, it has brought 3 of us from all over the world together. I'm enjoying this. So what I'm thinking is that I've seen her metamorph from being my mom, my teacher, to this warrior queen. And I was just actually texting Pallavi, who's my batchmate. She's also on this call, and telling her that it's amazing.
Hi, Nani.
That's okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay.
Sorry that she's not supposed to be here. She's in her classroom there. Yeah, so she has changed how she views situations from being just a part of a picture to now being able to look at the picture from outside and then take charge of it. That's something that I wish I can do, but and I think everyone should aspire to do, because it's easy to get caught up with the hype of it all, and how difficult a job is, because when you're in there you feel you're being overwhelmed. But I can see how now, from being just a worker bee, she's become like a queen bee. And I'm
Oh,
blatantly
come on.
no, I am saying this because that's what I feel. I know I'm so biased, so that's why I was saying I'm probably
you are
not the right
biased.
person.
Okay, I'll go to your
So
dad now.
yes.
Hello, sir. Would you like to add something? I'm sure a lot of people here know you.
They're asking you. Babu, they're asking you. You have to unmute yourself. No, he is not unmuted.
Okay, okay, that's it. So there's a student who wants to know how getting into administration has affected your relationship with undergraduate students. You were a teacher earlier and had a teacher-student relationship, and now you have an administrator-student relationship.
Yeah, so
Always saying that it is hyphenated, administrators, teacher, right? So whatever, yeah, tell me.
yeah, so but the thing is, I do, I meet undergraduates all the time when I'm going for a walk. I talk to them. I ask them about classes. I generally I meet with them if sometimes I walk into their mess, I taste their food and things like that. But I am involved in the sense that I do take this interns orientation programs. I take some sessions for them and things like that. So I don't teach. I don't teach pharmacology, and I really miss it. But I do teach postgraduates. Most of the time, the undergraduates we meet for something, if they want to organize something or that. But yes, but I otherwise I don't have much contact. That's true.
What do you think about starting new courses? Do you think our new institutions are ending up starting too many different new courses and too early when they are not really ready? What's your view?
Yes, some of the AIIMS have done that, and I think that is bad and that is wrong, because we have had examples when people have requested us, students, after joining, they have been asked to prepare the curriculum. And I think that is very wrong, because you can, the moment you start, just using courses, what happens is later on they don't end up having jobs, and they become frustrated in their own way, and they are also they become extremely specialized in a way in which they are not able to find jobs or be placed anywhere. So this is not a good thing.
So in the West, they would not have courses. There would a lot of teaching or acquiring special skills will happen after post graduation by just working in a department which does that.
Yeah.
Versus we are now seeing a lot of clamor for starting new courses. So do you think one can learn areas without starting a new course? What's your thought on that? I don't know whether my question is clear.
No, I think you can, because we have now people, for example, in our own Department of Surgical Oncology, we have, I think, 4 faculty members. Each faculty member has started, focusing on one area. So they are focusing on that, but they make up the Department of Surgical Oncology. So a student who joins surgical oncology gets the, experience of all these people. So I think that is much better than, making small pieces of a particular subject. I fully agree.
We are at 9 o'clock, so I don't know how much time the organizers would give us and how much time you are willing to give in. So I can go accordingly if somebody gives me a bit of a hint.
So we have no problem with time, sir. As long as you and Dr. Gitanjali are fine, we are fine.
So Gitanjali, let me know when you get tired of me.
Okay.
So have you felt that you're bad that you have spent less time with your specialty? Do you think, how do you know, when is it that one chooses to ditch the specialty and move on to the bigger platform? What is the right age or right stage?
I think I did it at the right stage. because I had this whole thing of, when I was in JIPMER with Dr. Ravindran and I, when the Indian Journal of Pharmacology was with the Department of Pharmacology for a very long time. And
I know that you did those workshops that I came for
Yeah.
in 1993
Yes,
once.
yes. So we did this huge number of workshops all over India and things like that. So that was actually my training ground where we met with people, we knew what it was and all that. And now that I am in this situation, you are in a position where you can get good people to come because of your links. So if it is too early in your career, you don't have that networking. For example, I called you to give us a talk, and you have done it because we know each other. But otherwise, it's not possible. So it's very important that at a certain stage when you take this, it's much easier.
Rakesh,
Yes, anybody
this is
wants
Ravindran.
to? Yes,
Rakesh,
sir.
can you hear me? Ravindran.
Yes, I can, and everybody can hear you. Please go
Ravindran.
ahead. Please
No,
go ahead.
there is a question now which I think you missed. Some Dr. Ravi Shankar has asked, personally feel hospitals and institutions should be administered by specialists and super specialists. They understand hospital functioning better. Your views. This is a question posted by Dr. V. Ravi Shankar. Can Gitanjali answer that?
Yeah, so I also felt that initially I was a little hesitant because I didn't know much about the hospital functioning. And but let me tell you, managing a hospital is just the same as managing any other situation. You really need to be a little smart. I mean, right now I can tell you more about how to manage the operation theaters, the anesthesia department, or the nursing department, or the biomedical waste management, or the housekeeping, or anything. So the issue is, it is easy for us to make the change, but sometimes when you have super specialists, initially if you see all the new names, there were only super specialists who were made as directors. Many of them got bored because what happened was they had to make sure that something was building, that undergraduates joined. They had no contact with undergraduation for a very long time. So this becomes very difficult if it is only a super. I mean, of course, there are people who made this switch, but I personally don't think it matters at all. This is some kind of a fix. We feel that if you are somebody, a clinician or a super specialist, only you can manage the hospital. It's not like that. But
So,
yes, if you ask some of my, yeah.
Go ahead,
Yes,
go ahead.
Rajesh.
Sorry, please finish. Okay.
No, but I have my own theories on certain things. For example, our surgical oncology department is after me to get this robotics. Robotics. And I told them that let's put it on hold. Let's build up the departments, then we buy it. And some students came and said that they are not going to select AIIMS Bhubaneswar because we don't have robotics. And I said, that's fine. You will not get it. Don't join. Okay, so because I really feel that buying an equipment for so many crores and you are not going to be able to, use it on many people, I'd rather buy things which are much more important using the money. Later on, when the institute comes to a certain standard, certainly we can go for it. So I have my own takes. It might not be correct, but I believe that I'm on the right track.
Do you think your gender has ever been a glass ceiling?
Actually, I never thought of it like that, but
Okay.
yeah, I never thought of it like that.
You never faced that. So how would you think of a few years down the line heading a corporate hospital?
No, I can't do that. I can't. See, in a corporate hospital, there are a lot of JIPMERites who are running fantastically. I mean, Chandrasekhar, Yashoda hospitals, and now in KIMS and things like that. But, in a corporate hospitals, you really don't do all these things. If you are having some kind of HR problem, the HR division takes care of it. If you want to buy some equipment, you tell them somebody else takes care of it. So in a corporate hospital, you are actually not taking decision. Here, the buck stops with you. You are making decisions on almost every single thing. And especially There's hardly much academics which are going on. I think they do a few courses, but their heart is not in the training part.
How much does your institution spend on research funding, and how do you decide that? Is it very competitive?
Yeah, so we allow people intramural grants for up to 5 lakhs. 5 lakhs to be spent over a period of 2 to 3 years. And they have to put in an application. We don't give 2 grants. That is, if somebody has had a grant, is an assistant professor has had a grant, they have to complete it before we give another grant. Now it has become more competitive. People are applying for it. And we have a ceiling of about 2 crores. This time I think we've even crossed it, but we keep about 2 crores for this.
Madam.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Dr. Rajshekhar.
Yes, Dr. Rajshekhar, please.
I know you and my sir very well, and how you have been growing up very nicely. It's such an example for anybody to grow from the internship to the higher level, as your daughter told us. But what would you are this one for the 2 major sectors of government and private medical colleges? Because the private medical colleges are equal number is becoming more and more private medical colleges. Earlier only government medical colleges were there. Good morning, sir. Dr. Rajshekhar, sir. Rajshekhar, sir.
It's okay.
So that is what would you tell them, sir? Most of the directors, which always come from Jipnari and Mahatma Gandhi, they all faced, they were not having any freedom at all. What would you advise for such situation? But we want all students should have the same training and other things.
Yeah, so Dr. Rajshekhar, that is that is a personal choice to join a private institution. It's a personal choice, and I think people who join there as in leadership positions know that, and they take a informed decision. So I think I can't comment on that.
Yeah, rather it's a sensitive issue, but I have to open it out. That's all. Yes.
Thank you.
So, Gitanjali, towards the end, a few more. As I have been putting in most of the questions that are in the chat box. If anybody wants to ask a few questions before I come to my final 2 or 3 questions, basically from the chat box.
I think you should go. I think people must be wanting to eat.
So, some people want to know, are you coming back to JIPMER?
Yes.
If yes,
I am
when?
on deputation. Rakesh, I am on deputation.
I know the answer, Gitanjali, but people have asked this.
I have to come back to pharmacology, and I am coming back, and Ravindran and everyone will have to put up with me. Yes.
Sure, we are all ready to put up with you whenever you are back. That's okay. The next question is at the end. What do you think, if you want to leave people with 2 or 3 short messages, what are your final messages?
Yeah, my final message is, if you are offered a position, or if there is a position which is opening up and you are at that point of time where you don't have other commitments, I feel that you should go for it.
You are in the boiling water, frog in boiling water.
Frog in boiling water. See, I actually don't have any commitments to hold me, and that is why I took that step. And so I feel that if anyone, if you can give the time, give the energy, please do that, because medical leadership needs good people at the present time, and we need to give that time to build institutions. That's what I would say.
Where do you think medical education is going, and what do we, if you think it is going down, what are 2 or 3 things that we need to do to take it upwards?
I don't think medical education is going down, but I think our standards are slipping. See, what is happening is we are focusing on keeping the students so happy that we don't mind whether if they don't know. Our standards are certainly slipping. Postgraduate standards, undergraduate standards are certainly slipping, because when they come and we ask them questions, when they come for senior resident interview or for faculty interviews, they are not able to answer very simple questions. So definitely our standards are slipping. And that is where we are going wrong. I'm not, the kind of types of classes we take, it is more interesting and all that, but we need to focus on our assessment. We should never bring down our standards of assessment, we need to, keep on making sure that it remains at that level.
I don't know about others. For me, it's been a very useful, a very exhilarating, a very enjoyable more than 1 hour. It's always been fun talking to you. I have known you since 1993. That's the first time we met in one of those research methodology workshops somewhere, and then I came to JIPMER. And it's always nice talking to you and hearing your forthright, frank opinions, and that's what we did today. Thanks a lot, and gave me an opportunity to meet your daughter, Vaishnavi. That was a bonus on the side. I obviously recognized her by the relatively infrequent last name, so that's it. Thanks everyone for joining, and thanks Dr. Vidya for giving me this opportunity to be
Thanks, Vidya.
on this call with you.
Thanks, Vidya. You're muted.
Dr. Padmanabhan, would you like to say something? We didn't hear from you. We were looking for you in the beginning.
Yeah, we want to listen, sir.
I love to listen. Other than talk, my talking days are over. I'm just watching and listening and enjoying the whole show.
Yes, sir.
Very nice.
Okay.
Rajshekhar, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Chandra has just joined us. Chandra, would you like to say something? Unmute yourself, Chandra. Unmute yourself. Chandra, unmute yourself.
Able to hear me now?
Let me.
Yes.
Able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I missed the talk. We just had a heart lung transplantation, so it was late by the time I could get home.
So Dr. Geetanjali referred to you as one of the young Turks who are doing a good job. So I just thought you'd like to know that.
I don't know if 43 is young, but
So thank you everyone for joining, and on this day of Mahashashti, which is I'm sure in Orissa the Durga Puja everything is starting, and like Vaishnavi mentioned, having avatar of Durga with us on during this Navratri, and you told us that you have all the facets. You are the Saraswati and the Kali, and we have to take on all these roles. So thank you so much for joining us and giving us this wonderful talk. And special thanks to Dr. Agarwal for keeping the session so interactive and making sure all the questions from our audience was answered. Thank you so much, sir. Patta, would you like to say anything?
No, my pleasure. Thanks. Nothing else.
Patta, we can't hear you. No, we can't hear you.
No, we can't hear you.
Radhakrishna, we can't hear you.
No.
No, there's some problem. There's some problem with your audio.
Try moving closer to the mic, please.
No, I think you had some problem while connecting. So on behalf of Patta, Dr. Girijadhar Sharma and LGS, I once again thank all of you for joining us today, and look forward to all of you joining us each Thursday. We will try and keep our topics interesting, and thank you all members of LGS too. Thank you.
Thanks, Vidya. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And happy Durga Puja.